Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating and, frankly, incredibly effective agricultural technique. It's going to completely change how you look at your vine-based crops. If you're growing cucurbit vegetables, things like cucumbers, bitter gourds, bottle gourds, or pumpkins, you already know the ultimate goal is getting that massive harvest. But hey, sometimes nature just needs a little strategic nudge, right? In this explainer, we're going to master a really simple but highly scientific pruning technique. It's called the 3G cutting method. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to manipulate your plant's natural biology to absolutely skyrocket your yields. So picture this. It's literally one of the most common, head-scratching frustrations for any gardener. You spend weeks caring for your plants. You're watering them, making sure they get enough sunlight, and soon enough, boom, you've got these beautifully lush, sprawling green vines. And then the flowers show up. Hundreds of gorgeous yellow blooms. You're probably thinking, wow, I'm gonna have a bumper crop this year. But as the days pass, nothing. The flowers just kind of wither and drop off. No cucumbers, no gourds, just an empty, albeit healthy-looking vine. So what's actually going on here? Why does this happen? Okay, let's dive into this. The answer actually lies right in the plant's biology, specifically its flowers. You see, cucurbit vines produce two completely different types of flowers, male and female. The male flowers, they're strictly pollen producers. Are they essential? Yes, absolutely. But they will never, ever bear fruit. The female flowers, on the other hand, have this tiny, miniature fruit right at their base. These are your actual fruit bearers. The catch here is that a young vine naturally wants to spend all of its early energy pushing out male flowers. It wastes just an incredible amount of energy producing these blooms that look fantastic, but yield absolutely zero food for your harvest. So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the vine yield problem, then the science of 3G cutting, followed by a step-by-step 3G tutorial. After that, we'll cover natural antiseptics and healing, and finally, boosting your yield with fertilizers.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the vine yield problem.
The exact problem we're facing really just comes down to the math. When your plant sends out its very first main stem, a whopping 80 to 90% of the flowers it produces are male. That leaves only a tiny fraction, around 10 to 15%, that are actually female. Think about that for a second. If you just let that primary vine grow completely unchecked, it's going to stretch out for meters, sucking up all your water and valuable soil nutrients, just to give you a sea of male flowers and, well, a pretty tiny, disappointing harvest. We've got to disrupt this natural, unproductive cycle.
Moving right along to Section 2, the science of 3G cutting. Now, I want you to think of your plant's growth kind of like a family tree. That main stem coming right out of the ground, that's the first generation, or 1G. And as we just learned, 1G is almost entirely male. But if we cut the tip off that 1G vine, the plant goes into survival mode and is forced to push out side branches. Those side branches become the second generation, or 2G. Now, 2G branches are a bit better. They offer a more balanced mix of male and female flowers. But what if we cut the tips off those 2G branches? Well, the plant forces out a third generation of branches. And here is the magic. These 3G branches are genetically triggered by the plant's own survival mechanisms to produce almost exclusively female fruit-bearing flowers.
Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer scale of the payoff. By actively managing your plant through these generations, basically forcing it to produce those 3G branches, you unlock massive potential. We're talking about systematic plant management that can yield 5 to 10 times more produce than a vine left to grow on its own. You are literally multiplying your harvest just by hacking the plant's structural biology. How cool is that?
So how do we actually do this? Let's get into Section 3, our step-by-step 3G tutorial.
I'll admit, this can feel like a totally counterintuitive process. I mean, you literally have to take a pair of sharp shears to a perfectly healthy-looking plant. But here's the exact formula. Step 1. You need patience. Let your main 1G stem grow until you can count exactly 12 leaves on it. Don't jump the gun and cut it too early. Step 2. Once you hit that magic number of 12 leaves, snip the growing tip of that main stem entirely off. This stops the vertical growth dead in its tracks and forces the plant to push out those secondary 2G branches from the sides. Step 3. Keep a close eye on those new 2G branches. Once they grow out and develop their own 12 leaves, yep, you guessed it, you snip the tips off of those too. That final cut is what forces the explosion of the highly productive 3G branches up.
But wait, there is a super crucial catch here. Do not, and I mean do not, get overly aggressive and strip the plant of every single male flower during this process.
Sure, the 3G branches are going to give you a massive abundance of female flowers, but those female flowers still desperately need pollen to actually transform into vegetables. If you wipe out all the male flowers from your 1G and 2G vines, the female flowers will stay unpollinated, wither, and eventually just drop off. You absolutely must leave some male flowers intact so the bees and insects can do their cross-pollination work. It's a team effort, right?
All right, on to section 4, natural antiseptics and healing.
You know, just like an open wound on a human, an open cut on a vine is highly susceptible to bacterial infections, diseases, and pesky pests. Now, massive commercial farms might not have the time to treat every single cut, but home gardeners, we have a brilliant natural solution hiding right in our kitchen pantries. You can take common, everyday household turmeric powder and just dab it directly onto the freshly cut ends of your vines. Turmeric actually acts as a powerful botanical antiseptic. It seals the plant's wound, speeds up the healing process, and creates this amazing natural barrier against deadly bacterial infections. It's a real lifesaver.
Finally, let's wrap up with section 5, boosting yield with fertilizers. To support this sudden explosion of 3G growth, you really need to feed the plant properly. It's hungry. The sources outline an incredible homemade organic liquid fertilizer recipe that is specifically tailored for this intense flowering stage. First, you'll want to use wood ash. Wood ash delivers essential potassium, which is fantastic because it prevents flowers from dropping off, and it even doubles as a natural pesticide. Second, throw in some crushed eggshells. This gives the plant a massive hit of calcium, essentially replacing store-bought bone meal. Third, add oil cake, sometimes called pinna, for a rich supply of general all-around nutrients. And then you just mix all this together with water.
But please pay very close attention to this next part. You must let this mixture sit for 24 to 48 hours so those nutrients can actually break down. And then, before you even think about pouring it on your newly pruned vines, you absolutely have to dilute it. We're talking double or triple the amount of fresh water added to your mixture. If you apply this fertilizer in its thick, concentrated form, the intense nutrient load is going to shock the plant, burn the roots right up, and probably kill your vine entirely. Nobody wants that. Dilute it down into a thin liquid, and your 3G vines will drink it up safely and happily.
So there you have it. By taking control of the generational growth of your plants, protecting their little wounds with natural turmeric, and feeding them a perfectly balanced organic liquid fertilizer, you are virtually guaranteed to see a harvest that's 5 to 10 times larger than ever before. You've officially hacked your vine's biology. So I'll leave you with this thought. As you look out over your newly optimized, highly productive garden, what other hidden biological secrets is your garden just waiting for you to reveal? Keep experimenting, keep observing, and keep learning. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.